Welcome to a new In the Mail, the favorite of the audience. It will be a long and very diverse one, quite a lot of cool items in this video, so stick around. The first item on my list is this super power turbo fan, and I finally got one. Seems like these are very popular. Everyone's been getting one of these. I've seen them in many videos on YouTube, and for good reason. I think this can effectively remove the need for, having an air compressor or for using compressed air cans for the general tasks of cleaning. Stuff like blowing away dust, blowing away water. The one I got is model number MegaFlow 50, and it's from this company called Wolfbox. I got this from Amazon in Europe, but as you can imagine, this is probably rebadge from some factory in China, and you'll probably find it under other brands as well. It's pretty nicely packed, quite decent build quality, and on the unit you get two buttons. This one is used for turning it on or off, and for adjusting through the three different. And this one on the front is the trigger to turn it on or off. It's a momentary button. There's also a USB Type-C for charging for the internal battery, and the claimed endurance is 19 minutes. Now, they don't mention on which intensity level that can be obtained, but I'm going to assume the lowest. I mean, even half of that, let's say 10 minutes, is going to be enough for dusting off some equipment, and then it can go back to charging. It's quite powerful. It comes with a few different nozzle types included in the package, and on a quick test from which I have removed the sound, it seems to produce enough pressure up close to create these indents in your skin, so I like that. Seems like it will do the job nicely. Next up, I got one of these cheap wireless presenter devices, and it comes with its own USB receiver thingy, which you can store here nicely. Then you can play, pause, skip your slides during the presentation. This one also includes like a laser pointer, and I quite like this thin form factor. It does come with this small carry bag, so I think that's pretty nice. If you plan to do any presentations, you can take this with you, but you can also use it at home if you feel like practicing. Now, I never stop to be amazed by how little we can pay for something like this. I paid like $6 shipped with VAT included to get this gadget, and you can get it for less probably if you're in the US, or maybe the same, but just imagine manufacturing it in the USA. How much would it have to cost? I bet you can't make this in the USA and have it cost less than $40 or $50. Who would even buy it at that cost when there is a $6 alternative available? Anyway, enough ranting. Moving on to my next product, this is a 5-meter long braided USB Type-C to USB Type-A cable. This one is rated for USB 2.0 full speed and up to 3 amps charging, so it's not good for full USB-C PD, not good for USB 3 speeds or anything like that. At least it's not rated for it. I got it just to power some ESP32 smart home node that had about 4 meters between its placement and the nearest socket, so it will be good enough for that purpose because we're talking 5 volts and maybe 500 milliamps max. My next item is this small USB Type-C gender changer connector, and if you're like me dealing with all sorts of custom PCBs, you can find yourself into a situation where something like this is needed. This one in particular claims it's rated for 40 gigabits per second, so that's Thunderbolt 3 rating. I'm not sure it actually meets that, but generally when I need to use something like this, it's not for the 40 gigabits links. You never know when you need something like this, so I think it's useful to keep it in your box of USB cables. I just would not count on it to do 40 gigabits. Maybe it can do. I mean, at least if you look on the inside, it does seem to have the entire 24 pins needed for that. Next up, I have this 8-pin ATX PSU CPU style connector on one side, and on the other side it splits it into two separate 4-pin connectors that can also be stuck together like shown here. But please note that the resulting connector, by connecting those 2x4, it is not the same as the one on the left, It will have the same wiring setup. However, the individual pins will be keyed differently because on such a connector there are round keys and square keys, which should prevent you from plugging in to the wrong connection with the same pin count. The length of this is 60 centimeters, and the wire gauge is actually marked on the cable itself, and it is 18 AWG. Now I'm using this type of 8-pin connector on a project I'm working on, so I will use this to build a custom supply cable to supply power from a bench power supply to this board. So I'll have 4mm banana plugs on one end, something like this one, which I already built a while ago. And same as always, you'll find links for all of these products in the description below should you decide to check them out. Next up, I decided to try out some of these slim Ethernet RJ45 patch cables. So in the past, I have tried out the flat cable patch cables. They work great. I have a bunch of them here in the lab. But lately, these slim, as in thin, round patch cables with slim RJ45 connectors are becoming more popular ever since people started doing mini rack projects. Now, these just look better on the front of a rack, so I ordered a couple of samples here because I might be building a mini rack soon. Now, this one on the left is from the SAMZHE brand, which is a name I've seen before on AliExpress. It's a Cat 6A rating, blue color, just 50 centimeters long, I believe. Now, it looks really sexy, and these RJ45 connectors are fully transparent. So if you have like a modern piece of gear, networking gear, which shines light from the RJ45 connectors, it will show through these. Something like Unify, for example. And the cost was pretty good on these, just $2.60 per unit at this length. So I'm probably gonna get more of these SAMZHE because my other sample, which comes from AMPCOM company, also Cat 6A rated in a light blue color, it's not as thin or as flexible as the other one, and the RJ45 connectors are not fully transparent. Now this one costs about the same, 2.6 USD, but comes in at a 2-meter length for that same cost. I would, however, prefer the SAMZHE ones because they're extra thin and flexible and they have fully transparent connectors, so probably a better fit for a mini rack project. And next up, just a quick mention for these Picoblade 1.25mm pitch cables. They are 20 centimeters long, 8 pins on the connector, but what's special about them is that they're built with this extra flexible silicone cables. The individual wires do have markings on them and they say AWG 30, and overall they feel like super high quality. They're a bit more expensive than standard, but well worth it if you want to have nice wiring on your project, or if there's any kind of higher temperatures involved, this will stand better than PVC. Next up, I have one of these DIY IAC mains connector plug. Now this is the male type, which you will typically find on the device receiving side, the non-energized side typically, while on the cable, what you'll typically plug into a wall outlet, you'll find the female version of this connector, which obviously provides the insulation for the connections. But this can be very useful if you plan to DIY your cables, can be useful for building an extension that you plug into a UPS, for example. Obviously, extra care should be taken if you plan to be working on mains stuff. While the image of the Ethernet patch cables is still fresh, let me also mention this guy, which is a USB to Ethernet adapter rated for 5 gigabits. I got one of the cheapest I could find on AliExpress. This was $22 shipped, VAT included. So I wanted to have something like this to potentially upgrade my Mac Mini 1 gigabit connection, which is built in, for a faster link to my Synology NAS, but the NAS is also just 1 gigabit, so that would need an upgrade as well, either via something like this on USB or via a built-in upgrade card, which is something like $130 US. So I plugged this into my Mac. It's using the RTL-8157 chipset, and there are drivers built into the latest version of macOS. It correctly negotiates to 5 gigabits as well as 2.5 and 1 gigabit if you need that. However, when testing with my local OpenSpeed test server hosted on my Windows machine, which has an Intel 10 gigabit network card, I could only get 5 gig upload and 2.5 gig download. Not sure what the deal is there, but I suspect a driver or settings issue. So it kind of works, but not quite, and I'm not willing to go down the rabbit hole of installing custom drivers for this thing, because Realtek doesn't even care to offer an up-to-date driver for macOS. Additionally, that's why you see this cap removed here, because I was trying to get inside of this. There is no heatsink on the internal chipset, and it does run very hot. With my thermal camera, I was measuring 70 degrees on some points of the PCB internally. So that's why I tried to get this disassembled. I only managed to get this bottom cap off, but I can't get it fully disassembled because there are some clips from this other cap which are holding onto the PCB, so I can't quite extract it from there, and I don't want to completely mess it up. So if I were to run this long term, I would probably want to take it apart and install some heatsink on that poor chipset. Yes, it does have these vents on the enclosure, but I would also like to have a heatsink in there. Same as always, the link for this is in the description below. My next item is this lithium polymer 1-cell battery rated for 3.5 amp hours. And it's been a while since I received this. If I remember correctly, the plan is to use it to replace the dead battery inside my rack wireless field tester. I think I have one of the early hardware revisions of that device, which has a bug that drains the battery when the device is not in use. So it's not something I use every day. I put it in a drawer, and then when I need it, 6 months down the road, it's dead. As you probably are well aware, if you keep batteries, deep discharged for a long time, they kind of degrade beyond recovery. This one is from a brand called Liter Energy, and I did buy batteries from them in the past. I had no issues whatsoever, so I do like them. So that's why I got this one from them. Next up, I have a few non-electronics related items. These are cleaning related items, so I got this 6 milliliter spray bottle. And the key thing about it is that, let me see if I can focus on this, it's made out of HDPE, and that makes it resistant to light acids and alkaline solutions, which you often find in all-purpose cleaners. Build quality is decent, especially considering the cost. It comes with this spray nozzle, which again, not super high quality, but certainly decent enough for the cost I paid. I also got these microfiber towels, which I found for a very good price. These are edgeless. I think I got 5 for like $13 shipped, VAT included. These are 40 by 40 centimeters wide with 350 grams, and I find that these work pretty decent for a quick wipe around the car after a wash. And I also got one of these monster soft brittle brushes. It's a short handle, so you get an excellent grip on this, and it's great for cleaning the interior of your car, upholstery, seats, stuff like that, but obviously good for anything else you might think of around the house. Instead of using one of the smaller brushes, you use something like this and you get more done in the same amount of time. Next up, I got a set of these 10 vacuum sealing bags with the manual pump. There's also an option to get an electrical one, and it's for the purpose of sealing 3D printing filament in vacuum. And there is a trick to getting these valves to get a perfect seal. The secret lies in how they operate, and Big Clive has a video on these, so I recommend watching that if you want to get a good seal on these bags. And these are good not just for 3D printing filament, but for anything in general where you might want to pack some desiccant and have a vacuum seal, like you can also do it with electronic components, for example. And I also upgraded from my Ender 3 and got a Bambu Lab P1S, which is sitting right there on a nice aluminum stand that I built, but I should probably do a separate video on that topic. I also got another spare set of these gloves from the Mechanic brand, and I've shown these in previous videos. They are thin, flexible, anti-static. They have this PU coating on the fingers. Pretty comfortable to wear if you're handling some more sensitive stuff. I like them, so I always try to keep spares of these around. Next up, I have a few stickers. These are yellow triangle high voltage warning stickers made out of PVC, about 3.6 millimeter wide. they do feel really high quality and thick, and they have this matte finish, really nice. I'm hoping the adhesive is just as good. It's useful to have these for sticking onto electrical panels, project boxes, junction boxes, stuff like that. But be aware that depending on your local regulations, such stickers should probably contain very specific information like the voltage and specific warnings in a particular language. So sticking these alone might not help with regulations. And I also got these reflective white strips just to add to my son's bicycle to improve his visibility on the road in every way possible. You can find these in a variety of sizes and colors, and again, I find that the adhesive quality can vary. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. I haven't tested these yet. Another thing that I recently got is this electronic pressure gauge, which I primarily got for equalizing pressure on my car tires, which have built-in pressure sensors. Now, whenever I go to a tire shop and they inflate the tires, they're mostly within 0.2, 0.3 bar difference between different tires. And I'm not sure there's, technically anything wrong with that, but I just don't like seeing those readings all over the place in my dashboard. Must be my engineering background coupled with my OCD coupled with my slight metrology love. So that's an easy fix with something like this, with this digital pressure gauge. It also has a backlight, really nice green backlight. It can display several different units like PSI, KPS, bar. It has this blow-off valve switch, which you can use to release the pressure. And I got the version with the solid attachment, but I believe there are also longer hose flexible adapters that you can screw in here, and I must say that so far so good. I'm happy with the unit, and I successfully used it to equalize pressure on all 4 tires. Another way to get equal pressure is by using a digital electronic inflator pump. These also monitor pressure with a digital sensor, and they can cut off at exactly the same level for all tires. But it just takes more time to do it this way because, well, this is not a very powerful pump, so it's easier to start with a higher pressure that was put in at the tire shop and then just deflate a little bit to equalize them. I also have this electric pump, and I've been using it a lot, especially to inflate bicycle tires, and I'm afraid that its tiny fragile adapter hose will break at some point because well, it's a small compressor in here, and it does get very hot if you use it for extended periods of time, and it also heats up this end of the adapter hose, so it softens. I wanted to get a replacement just in case the original one fails, and there are many different possible thread sizes. I got this one, and it's called an M6 adapter hose. Now I have tried this one, and it does seem to be the correct thread size, but because they have this securing nut on here, which is slightly larger diameter, it does slightly interfere with this like acrylic glass they have on here for the flashlight function, but I think it can still be used as it is. Next up, I have some thermal plaster or thermal silicone adhesive, and these are small tubes of just 5 grams each. But that's exactly what I want, because when I have a job I need to attach a heatsink or something like that, I'm only going to use on average 1 gram, maybe 2 grams at most, depending on the size of the heatsink, of course. But this stuff will age and solidify pretty quick if you don't store it airtight and preferably in the fridge. So these small tubes work the best because I can keep the rest of the batch vacuum airtight, factory sealed, and only slowly open them one by one as I have jobs that require it. Next up, I have a tube of T7000 adhesive in black, and I believe you can also find this as transparent. And if you're working in the gadget repair industry, you've probably seen this stuff before. It's a type of glue which has medium viscosity, 4 to 6 minute surface cure time, 24 to 48 hours complete curing times. It's good for up to 90 degrees Celsius, or so they claim. Now, I mostly needed some black flexible adhesive, so this came up in my searches, and I always like this type of of dispensing nozzle because it kind of auto seals with this stuff going inside that tube. I will mostly be using this for fixing small stuff like hardening some connectors, some preventing some JST connectors from releasing from their PCB mating connectors. For reference, I have applied some of this on a PCB about 24 hours ago, so let's take a closer look at the result. So it's flexible, but still has pretty good adhesion. I mean, it's not easy to pull this off the PCB, and it also feels a little bit sticky on the outside, even though I gave it 24 hours for curing. Maybe that's normal, but it does tend to stick to my tweezers. Now you'll notice that there is a little bit of a mark in the spot where I have this glued on. Now let's try to wipe that with some IPA and see if it goes away. Maybe it's just the oils contained inside the adhesive. Yeah, it completely wiped off. So those must have been, some oils which are contained inside the adhesive. Next up, I got myself a genuine RTL-SDR V3 from their AliExpress shop. I just got the basic kit, no antenna or anything like that included. I have, plenty of antennas. I have a box of antennas, and if needed, I can also DIY an antenna. The reason for getting this is because I recently got some ISTA water meters installed in my apartment, and they transmit on 868 megahertz. Now, ISTA, I believe, is a German company, so probably many of my viewers in Europe have something similar installed. Now I thought it will be a matter of just receiving those packets, decoding according to some modulation scheme, and then decoding the packet structure to figure out where the actual water counter resides in the packet. However, little did I know that ISTA in particular is encrypting the data they send on the wireless M-Bus protocol with a 128-bit AES key, which makes it impossible to decode their messages. I can't even see the freaking decoded messages. I can't even capture the encoded messages because not only are they encrypted, but the particular newer model of water meter and radio module that I have installed doesn't even broadcast. It uses likely the R2 mode, which means it needs to be pulled by a gateway which is installed on the staircase of the building, and only then it will reply with the actual data. So far I've had zero luck. I could not intercept anything, but other meters from other brands I was able to intercept. Those are probably from nearby buildings. And even if I could intercept stuff, I still would not be able to decode it, which is a bummer because I would have liked to integrate this into Home Assistant. Now the SDR is useful nonetheless for a variety of other tasks, and if you want the best quality and you want to support the project, I recommend you get the original version. Next up, I have some small but very important components if you plan to use your oscilloscope to do some measurements where you want to keep common mode noise out. Yes, I'm talking about measuring without using the long ground clip that you get with your oscilloscope probes, and switch to using the small spring ground clips. Now, all oscilloscope probes will come with at least one of these per probe included. However, in some cases, like it's the case with the Rygo, they have this weird bend in the spring clip. That's how their design works, which for me is not ideal in practice. It just gets in the way of using it. So instead, I prefer this other type of a spring clip where there's just a 90-degree bend in that connection. Now be aware that these can also come in about two variations, I believe, of the internal diameter of the spring, so keep that in mind when ordering. I got the 4.5 millimeter diameter size, which fits perfectly on my on these Rigel probes. These are the PVP 3150, but you may have a different model, so check before ordering. I even have a custom footprint design that I usually drop on the input and output capacitors on DC to DC converters, where I can easily plug this probe for noise measurements and it will stay there on its own, allowing me to have my hands free for other stuff. As always, a link for these is in the description below. Next up, I have some thermal fuses which I needed in a recent repair. These are rated for 2 amps at 250 volts and 130 degrees Celsius, so it will allow you to supply current to a downstream device up to 2 amps and 250 volts, but when the temperature of this fuse goes above 130 degrees Celsius, it will cut off. Typically not recoverable, so it's like a blow fuse. Now this type of functionality is very useful to prevent something from catching fire. In case it somehow fails and it overheats, power will be automatically cut. And quick hint here, you have to be really careful if you're trying to solder these in, because if you're trying to solder them with your soldering iron at 300 degrees Celsius, when you put your soldering iron on one of these leads, it will raise the internal temperature and the fuse will blow. So, you know, these will sometimes be mechanically attached with some screw terminals. Other times I've seen them like ultrasonically welded, or if you absolutely must solder, then I think you have to use like a lower temperature alloy. And these are some nice metal switches. I got the normally open latching type here, 8mm diameter hole, and they also have an integrated LED ring, and I got the 3 to 6 volt DC model. You can get different colored LEDs with different LED voltage ratings to pretty much be able to just plug and play these into your system, whatever the voltage might be. I quite like them because they feel like high quality switches, and inside the package they also include some O-rings and a matching nut. They claim these are good for up to mains voltage and up to 1 amp with an IP65 rating, so that's water and dust proof. Now, would I trust these with mains going through them with these terminals being so close together in an IP65 scenario? Probably not. Maybe if you got like good grounding of all of the metal parts, but I feel like that's not good enough for me. Maybe I would consider these good enough for DC voltage up to 60 volts. And you can also find these in a bunch of other sizes and varieties. I know this is getting long, but I still have 2 or 3 interesting things to show, so please stick around. These are waterproof enclosures for Apple Airtags. Product description claims IPX8 rating, which means continuously being underwater at 1 meter for a long time. Inside this 2-unit pack, you get 2 of the enclosures, 2 silicone sleeves, which go on the AirTag itself, 1 spare 3M round adhesive patch, which matches the case, and 3 of these large round black patches, which feel like, if I show you a close-up of this, it feels like acetate cloth tape type of stuff. Now, the instructions show how you should stick the enclosure in the center of the big patch, then stick the patch to the object. Now I'm guessing this just increases the surface area and makes better bonding with a variety of surfaces, but I don't know, what are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments below, why do you think they recommend this way of mounting it? One application I'm particularly interested in is tracking of my kitesurf board, so I will probably give these a try with that, but you can also use them for anything else like bikes, electric scooters, car tracking, you name it. As long as you own it and it's legal to track it, they will do a good job. Next, I have an interesting development board from LilyGo, which includes an ESP32 plus a CAN interface plus an RS485 interface, which I think is great for general industrial application interfacing, some automotive development work, stuff like that. So in the past, I had to grab an ESP32 board, a CAN or RS485 breakout board, connect the two, and then I was up and running. But why go through all of that hassle when you can get something like this that integrates the nice protections and filtering on both the CAN and RS485 interface? You have the built-in DC to DC converter, which means you can power this up from 5 to 12 volts external DC via this screw connector. You can even add an external antenna if needed to boost the range. There is even a micro SD card slot on the back, so you could do data logging on the SD card if needed, and all of this for $17. That's just great value for money, so I had to get one. Check out the link in the description. And my last item in today's video is also a development board, once again a cool and unusual one. This is an ESP32S3 based dev board, which is paired with this 4-inch capacitive touch, 480 by 480 pixel IPS display in this square form factor in this enclosure, similar to a wall attached smart thermostat or control panel. So this would be the display processing part, and you would also need like a base plate or wall mounting plate, which is not included, but would allow you to install this into an actual junction box or switch box. But I bet that my smart viewers can also design and 3D print something like that. Now, when I ordered this, it was just $22 US, and now I see it sells for about 27. It's still a very good price for what it offers, because on the bottom you get this USB Type-C port and a micro SD card slot and what looks like a reset switch behind that pinhole. On the back we have a small 2-pin JST connector for a speaker. We have a battery connector here, a UART serial connector here. The bigger 0.1-inch 8-pin header is not documented on the product page, but you could probably figure that one out if you open the device and check the PCB traces. Now, if you plug a USB cable with power, it starts into this preloaded application, which seems to run beautifully on this capacitive touch. You can connect it to Wi-Fi using this screen, or you can entirely skip that step. A word of caution though, when doing this on a private network, because you don't know what's running under this interface. The worst case scenario, this could be running a tunnel into your private network. So if you decide to connect it, just keep that in mind, or maybe you just skip connecting it. It will still show you this interface. And you get this dashboard, which looks very nice. I did connect it to my Wi-Fi. I'm not really sure if this information is pulled in real time based on some geolocation thing, but this dashboard just looks very nice, and it's a really good example of what could be achieved with such a product. And it's pretty cool that you can get something like this for $22 US. So that was all for today. Thank you for watching and sticking until the end, and as always I would love to hear your feedback in the comments below. Let me know if you found something useful to order in this video. Until next time, take care.